Good morning, Valvanera. Valvanera is the Director General for the Spanish Office on Climate Change. We are very glad to have you here this morning, and we would like to talk to you about climate change, of course, and we would like to ask you what the main consequences and the main outcomes of the Paris Agreement have been for Europe and for Spain.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Lara. It's a pleasure to be here today. I think that the main consequences is that the Paris Agreement was the reassurance that the EU was in the right direction, and also Spain as part of the EU, because we in 2014 have put on the table, the main goal for fighting against climate change. We put the 40%, for reduction of our emissions for 2030. That was the biggest compromises. So I think that was, the international framework, the legitimacy that we need for go ahead and push forward, or our policies and measures, dealing with climate change. So was very welcome in Europe, was very welcome in Spain, and now we are working in the implementation of this compromise.
And in terms of implementation and moving on to COP22, it's been dubbed the Action and Implementation COP. There's been a political declaration saying that climate action is irreversible, that we have to go ahead, that there's no going back. What are the main outcomes of COP22, and what has been the role of Europe and Spain in particular in this COP?
I think that COP22 was very important also. It's an important milestone because, as you said, we have a political proclamation, but we also have, a good, outcomes on the work program under the Paris Agreement. So that means that we are making progress, in the implementation of all the rules. There is a huge work program, and we decided to finalize all these rules, by 2018. So that's, a real political sign and a real, willingness to advance under the application of this Paris Agreement. We also have the proclamation in which all the countries, reaffirm the compromise under Paris, and it's also very important, all the movements, in the solidarity package, because we also, decided to put in place, a lot of means and all the capacity instruments to help, developing countries to advance in the application of the development low carbon plans. So I think that the sources of finance and the capacity instruments, were on the top of the agenda in COP22, and that's also, a very good signal of the implication of all the countries, in dealing with this new agenda. We also made progress in the Global Action Partnership. That means that all non-governmental, activities, are taken into account, and we want to try to have a holistic approach under this agenda, and I think that it's also, very important to reach, the 2 degrees goal. We need to mobilize, more actors, and we need also to have, a clear picture of how all these actions, can sum up to this goal, and that was also agreed in Marrakech, and I think that's the other pillar, that it's important in this process, because we need to make this transformation, and we need all the actors, very implies, the activities that not only governments would like to implement, but also, non-state actors would like to implement. And they really need, a clear signal from the international arena that they are going to be taken into account, and I think that COP22, was very successful also in that sense. So I think that we are in the right direction. We have a lot of work, to do for next year, because 2017 will be the year of the implementation of the agreement, and we are willing, in Spain and in the European Union, to still take the lead, in this process. We have a very clear vision that this agenda needs urgency, and also needs, very, very ambitious, actions, that we are taking right now under the European framework. I think that the leadership, it's more important than ever, and we need to have, coalition with the rest of the countries, not also with the development countries, but also with all the developing world that is really eager to advance on this agenda for 2018. That will be, the key year for the work program, for the finalization of this work program, and for the evaluation, because we will have a kind of a stock take, in 2018, to see how mitigation policies, are right now in contrast to the 2-degree goal. So we are in the process of working with all the rest of the parties, to take, these goals.
So a bigger role of the High Ambition Coalition, European Union included, and the Climate Vulnerable Forum that put out this this goal of going 100% renewable as soon as possible. That's great. And going a bit back to the non-party stakeholders, what are the main impacts, in your opinion, of the Paris Agreement and COP22 on the energy sector as one of the main greenhouse gas emitters?
Yeah, I think that in Europe we have to be, very cautious, that we have to work very closely to the sectors. I think that it's positive that the Commission, has put on the table already, all the different measures and all the different instruments, that we need to have in place to take each of the sectors, that are really important on the impact on CO2 emissions. Of course, energy, will be one of the main actors, in this process. The last publication of the package for clean energy for all Europeans, it will be very, very important, for credibility and for predictability, for these sectors. There is a bunch of measures, dealing with energy efficiency in buildings, renewables, and governance, and it will be also, one of the cornerstones of this new agenda for climate and energy, because we need, a coherent governance between both sides of the policies, and I think that the objective of the European Union and also, for the Commission is to have, all these measures, adopted in the coming years. We have the ETS dossier, very, very advanced, and also the effort sharing and the LULUCF dossier. And I hope that we can finalize, both in 2017 and the next year in 2018. We will have, the main governance, issue that is a combination or a unique plan, for climate and energy that will need to be assessed by the Commission, by this year. So we have a lot of work, in front of us, but I think that is going to be very positive, because we have, all the political signals and all the legislative package in place, in the coming years. So that's good for the sector, and it's also good for having, a clear picture of the role of the European Union in the international arena.
And finally, what are the main milestones for 2017 coming from the climate action world for Europe and for Spain? What are our homework?
Yeah.
What's our homework for next year?
Well, we'll have, all this homework that is implementation, and implementation. The European Union, as I said before, have the challenge to advance in the ETS and the effort sharing regulation and LULUCF regulation. They want to have all this dossier finished by the end of 2017. In Spain, we will like to start working in a law, in a climate change and law transition law in the energy sector. It's going to be an open process and very participative one. So we really need to start working, with all the actors and with all the different ministerial departments, in the design of the objectives of this law. I think that 2017 will be crucial for us, because we need to really, have the design of the main objectives. We want a law that will cover all the sectors economic-wide, and that means that we need, you know, all the actors, you know, involved from the very beginning. I'm talking about the ministerial departments, but I also want to make clear that we want all the rest of the political you know, actors involved in this law. So the main goal will be to have, you know, a common governance also in Spain, you know, to have all voices representative there. So we try to work hard on that, you know, next year, and will be one of our main homeworks. And we also, you know, put a lot of attention under the international negotiations, because it will be very important, you know, to really have a clear work program with all our priorities, you know, well designed and well recognized, you know, in the next COP that will be in Bonn, and that means that we need to start working, you know, from the very beginning, you know, and with all the rest of the parties. So a lot of homework, and I think that we are in the right direction, and that's the main goal for us.
And can we expect a law that will be similar to the UK Climate Change Act or the French Energy Transition Law? Will we have carbon budgets?
Yeah. Well,
do we know?
I think that we have, you know, we've been studying, you know, all the laws that are already in place. Both have a lot of good lessons that we can try to implement here in Spain. UK law was launched, you know, before Paris Agreement, so we are in a new scenario, you know, and our law, I think that will be, you know, the law for Paris and not the law for Kyoto. So we need to design, you know, a transformation of our economy, you know, with a view with a view in 2050, and that will be, you know, the main focus and the main approach. And I'm not going to say no for carbon budget, but I think that the carbon budget need to be refined because we really change, as I say, the objectives, and we are waiting for the rest of the world, you know, to act also in climate change. So we really need to have an overall approach to this law, because the sectors will interact in a different manner. So we are going to analyze everything. I think that they are both are very good examples of how you can design, you know, a climate change law. But I think that we need to be more open-minded, you know, to the new objective that we signed in Paris.
Well, thank you ever so much. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much.